not enough models out there being really high, with high visibility to show what's possible. So I think that a lot of people think the only possibilities are group homes, separate classrooms, you know, day programs, sheltered workshops for employment. That tends to be, I mean, it's changing slowly, but in much of the country, in many communities, that's still the norm. So I think that, I believe in the power of film and the power of media to really get the word out and to get visions out there for what is possible. Because I think it's almost like you have to embarrass schools and communities into seeing how poorly they're doing around this, really, and what's possible. And why it's so much better, again, not just for the individuals, but for society. Because you think about when someone gets a good education, I mean, you know, I have a lot of respect for special educators, but I wish they were working in typical classrooms, collaborating with typical teachers to make this work. Because I want Samuel to be educated by the best educators in the school, which tend to be teachers who have been trained that way. If he gets that education, he'll be more prepared for college. He'll get a better college education. He'll be more prepared for employment. He'll be able to get a good job. He'll be able to have a house. He'll meet lots of people. He'll have a lot of friends, relationships. So I think that that vision has to be the norm. And I think that really, you know, if we can get to a point where that becomes the norm, I think that a lot of people who think their best possibilities to be in a group home, or their best possibilities to be in a separate school, or parents who feel like the only way their kids are going to get the right supports and resources is in a separate classroom or a separate school, they'll start to see that's not really the case, that it's being done inclusively. And why would anyone choose to be excluded? I mean, that's the bottom line. I don't see why someone would choose to be excluded. I think the only reason that choice is often made is because inclusion is being done so badly and so under-supported that it's a disaster, whether it's in employment or in housing or in schools.
My boys were both at the Haggerty when the inclusion program started.
Really?
They're 21 and 22 now.
Wow.
And I think they're very different people than they would have been without this program. They are non-disabled, but they are so sensitive, not just to the other people who are different from themselves, but for the world around them. Where are the ramps? Why are you parking in a handicapped space? Can I help you, but do you need help? If not, fine. And when I had my own accident, they were ready. Just as you said, a grandparent. They took it in stride, and I think that this should be the norm.
I liked how you had some of the challenges that are out there also, especially when you look at middle and high school. And particular around when this one teacher said that what a terrible year she had. And so I'd just like to bring up around some discussion around thinking about in high school, what does inclusion look like in high school? And is that different? Does it look different than it looks like in elementary school?
But he got a Dynavox, which allows him, with his very limited verbal output, to start to express the millions of thoughts and words that are in his head that he can't express. I think at a high school level, that kind of technology is more and more critical. And I'm actually really optimistic, because you think about teenagers today and young people, it's all about technology, right? I mean, Isaiah wants the cell phone, the iTouch, all the video games, you know. And so that type of technology is not at all foreign to them. They're very comfortable with technology. They're very comfortable using the technology to interact with each other, whether it's a cell phone, text messaging, or whether it's an augmentative communication device, like a Dynavox. So I think that there are some things that are unique in high school for sure. I think it's a little harder to build that sense of community like it is in elementary school. I think you can build really strong community classrooms. You don't have that kind of continuity throughout the day you do in high school when people are moving around as much. I do think the potential is there to create a strong community within the school, a community of acceptance, of diversity. And I see that happening. And I see that happening because of great leadership. It all starts, I think, with leadership. If you don't have someone like a Joe Padner or someone who really believes this is the vision, and the only question is how are we going to get there, then I don't see how it can happen. And then supports that leadership with the right training, the staffing, the technology, the curriculum, the well-trained paraprofessionals, all the things that teachers need to be successful. The planning time. I mean, this is what I hear all over the place. We don't have the technology, we don't have the planning time. And everyone says, well, what about the money? A lot of stuff doesn't cost more money. It's real, planning time doesn't cost money. It takes some really creative engineering of the schedule and the staffing. But also, if you take one girl like Emily Huff, who was sent out of district, partly because she was very ill at the time, but partly because there was not a climate of community in her school, so she was getting bullied mercilessly, That was the biggest factor that drove her out. But she's being sent out of district to a residential placement for maybe $200,000 a year, $150,000 a year. If you can repurpose that money into a school district, that benefits all kids. So that's kind of just a bunch of thoughts about how I think, yeah, there are some unique challenges, and I think that teacher was feeling very challenged by what was going on.
The need to have images of, such as films like, including Samuel, that represent and bring this message to those diverse communities that are increasingly populating our school districts. We're not good at that yet, and that's an area I think that there are some advocacy agencies, such as the Federation for Children with Special Needs, a Peak Parent Center out in Colorado, other institutes that are working on this, but we're not there yet. Inclusive Schools Network, that we've launched here at EDC, is intentional on making sure that parents of diverse learners are getting the information, getting the support.
You know, IDEA says that students will be educated in a typical classroom, in the least restrictive environment, which is a typical classroom, with the proper supports. And so people forget about that second part, with the proper supports, so they just throw kids into a classroom without those supports. So once parents understand the legal obligations, and then I think trying to collaborate, be in a collaborative spirit with your team, and it can very quickly become oppositional, and you get into legal fights. Now, I know there are a lot of parents, I feel very fortunate that I had parents who were able to afford to send me to college. You know, I grew up middle class, but like a lot of kids, I was able to go to college, and that was wonderful. I was able to develop a career in journalism that really helped my advocacy skills. My wife has a career that helps her advocacy skills. So we feel very fortunate. A lot of parents haven't had that economic status to go to college. I had a conversation recently with someone who said, you know, what about just asking a parent, what are the 3 things you want for your child? Just the 3 basic hopes, dreams, things you want for your child. I think any parent, regardless of their economic status or their situation, can answer that question, or at least think about that question. Then it's the team's responsibility to work in those goals into the IEP and make sure that parent is represented. So that's just a few thoughts about parents. In terms of teachers, I can only speak, you know, specific to New Hampshire. You know, at the Institute on Disability where I work, there's a huge range of training opportunities for teachers. Huge. And I know there are national training opportunities, and each there, I'm sure here, I know you must have some of the Inclusive Schools Network, the ICI, the Institute for Community Inclusion, which hosted my Boston premiere, including Sam almost a year ago, has a huge range of training opportunities. So I think the professional development is out there if teachers seek it, if the principals and superintendents support it and give them the time to attend. We're having, on April 10th, we're having a big Inclusive Education Leadership Summit. And Norman's going to be there, Keith, my wife, Betsy, Barbara, Brian, Cheryl Jorgensen, Joe Petner. We're all going to be up doing a day-long seminar on inclusive leadership. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to do more and more with this project, is create events and seminars for teacher training.